Leigh Steinberg, how are you today?
I'm peachy.
Thanks so much for taking the time. I don't want to spend the whole half an hour introducing you, although I could. You're obviously a renowned American sports agent, philanthropist, author. Uh, your career has gone on for incredibly, I think, about 50 years. You've had hundreds of professional athletes across just about the entire gamut: football, baseball, basketball, boxing. You've negotiated a staggering 3 billion or more in contract for players. Some of the names: Troy Aikman, Steve Young, Patrick Mahomes. It's mind-boggling, actually. And if that wasn't enough, there's the people that probably know you because of being the real life inspiration for the sports agent film Jerry Maguire. So you got that to boot as well. So an extraordinary career. And we're going to talk about a lot of that. But in addition to all those accomplishments, you are really very well known for, much like the movie Jerry Maguire focused on, a different perspective or a different point of view on how to be an agent, a much more holistic point of view that really focuses on taking care of your clients and looking out for them beyond the money. And so I'd love to just, start off by saying, that perspective. How would you sum up your perspective on how to be an agent and why?
So I was raised in a family that stressed two core values: treasure relationships, especially family, and try to make a meaningful difference in a positive way in the larger world and help people who couldn't help themselves. So when I began representing athletes in 1975, I saw the tremendous power they had as role models and asked if they'd retrace their roots and go back to the high school community, set up a scholarship fund, work with the Boys and Girls Club or a church, go to the collegiate level, network, set up a charitable entity of some sort, and at the pro level, tackle some problem they'd like to address by setting up a charitable foundation with leading business figures, political figures, and community leaders on a board to execute a program. So that could be work done, putting the 200 single parent and their family in the first home they'll ever own by making the down payment in Homes for the Holidays, or Mahomes with his 15 and the Mahomies. So the point was to view an athlete holistically and think about how they can be a charitable role model, think about second career, think about their health and wellness in second career. And I think the most important skill is listening. If you can draw out another human being and cut below the surface responses to get deeper and deeper, peel back the layers of the onion until you can bond with someone's deepest anxieties and fears and greatest hopes and dreams. If you can put yourself in another person's heart and mind and see the world the way they see it from their goals and their perspectives, you can navigate your way gracefully through life.
And if you can do that in your industry and doing what you do, because obviously people think, most especially of being an agent, as being very hard-nosed in nature. Um, did you start out with this approach in the beginning, and was it immediately successful for you?
So we get back to Atlanta to sign Steve Bartkowski, who'd been the first player picked in the NFL draft in 1975. And we get to the airport the night before the signing, and there are Klieg lights flashing in the sky like for a movie premiere. And a crowd was pressed up against the police line. And I said, oh my goodness. And I saw the tremendous idol worship and veneration that athletes were held in communities across the country. And I thought, well, I can fulfill a career goal through the concept of role modeling and imitative behavior that I wanted, as well as representing them. And I saw too that athletes could message. So when we had the heavyweight boxer Lennox Lewis cut a public service announcement that said, real men don't hit women. He could do more to trigger behavioral change in rebellious adolescents than 1,000 authorities ever could on the issue of domestic violence, or Oscar De Loy and Steve Young, prejudice is foul play. So I saw the power then, and I thought, if you could use the symbols of popular culture to try to trigger good values and tackle problems in the world, you could have a profound impact.
And talking about value, because it's a great word, and we talk a lot about, when we talk about social capital, which is the Center for Social Capital, we talk about the value of helping people. So, we'd all like to be nice, and we think it's important to respect each other, but we also see a real economic value in treating people with respect and taking care of people. You obviously, in trying to inculcate these values in your players, have you seen that directly relate to their economic value?
Well, first of all, the reason we do it is because it's the right thing to do. But the ancillary value is manifold. First of all, you've got athletes who, instead of being passive and self-absorbed, have to think about others in the community and use their skills to organize a charitable program, to interact with the public. But those relationships that they make are invaluable. And networking is something I emphasize to athletes. It's how to walk up to someone at a banquet, spend 5 minutes talking with them, ask them for their card, write on the back of it. It was a middle-aged man with a big boil on his nose who talked about plastics. So what we used to call a Rolodex is something that an athlete can keep all those contacts, and that's the gateway into second career. So those contacts they're making. So I'll give you an example. I had players on the San Francisco 49ers, and I would ask them, can you think of any industries distinct to this geographical area where you play in Santa Clara? Well, high tech and venture capital. So through relationships they made, the tight end Brent Jones ended up putting together a $4 billion hedge fund, and Steve Young is managing director of another hedge fund. So it's, or Bruce Smith, the defensive tackle at a big construction company. And at its best, Warwick Dunn, who we talked about with Homes for the Holidays, is a minority owner of the Atlanta Falcons. So it's the athlete as business person, owner, entrepreneur.
So that's brilliant. And obviously you're looking at the long haul and the long view of all this as well, because you want to be their agent for their entire lives, and giving them all kinds of potential and possibilities. I went over a little bit of the incredible names that you've represented. I mean, some of these are some of the biggest stars in sports. I know from my years of working at People magazine, sometimes celebrities and people that have a huge amount of success can be a little hard to handle. Have you ever had challenges with inculcating this kind of point of view and this kind of perspective with any of your clients? And how do you deal with it if you do?
So what I try to do is profile prospective clients. So I do research into their background. So if I find that this talented athlete has done a mission to Haiti, or worked in the inner city, or expressed compassion, then that's someone I want to represent. I make it very clear at the beginning that they're playing an entertainment, which is not transportation to get to work or food on the table. And if they want to sustain that, they need to behave in an exemplary fashion. They need to be careful about alcohol. They need to have a friend with them if they go into a bar to avoid a fight. They need to be very careful not to put their hands on anybody in terms of anger, especially a woman. So prevention is the best cure, and we try to work closely with athletes to make sure they understand what the stakes are and the rest of them. You also want to educate them so they learn about the world. So I hold a huge Super Bowl party every year, and we bring the prospective draftees to that party so they can see how that world of business and politics and entertainment and sports all coalesce, and they can see it from the outside and then understand the role they'll play.
So obviously you're targeting, athletes that you think will be receptive to this, which is brilliant. There's the other side of that too. Have you had athletes that have come your way? And of course, you don't have to name any names, but have you had athletes that have come your way and wanted to be represented, and you've just thought, no, I might not be the right fit for you?
I remember there was an athlete who heard my discussion about charity. And he said, Leigh, the only problem with that is I'm my own charity. And he ran the fastest 40-yard dash I've ever seen out of my office. So, yes, there are every time you agree to represent someone, you're carving out a little bit of your own life. And there's a finite amount. So you want to be careful. I need to have a ethical, moral underpinning to the work I do in the world to feel good about it. So you want to feel great about that client and the impact he'll make.
So along the lines of that standard for how you do things and that moral underpinning, I've read some fascinating things about your negotiating skills in general. And, so often back to that hard-nosed idea, it's about destroying the other side in a negotiation. But you have a very different perspective on negotiations, don't you?
I wrote a book called Winning with Integrity that's the 12 essential steps in negotiation. And the key in negotiating, again, is to put yourself in the other person's position, understand thoroughly what the economics are of it, and understand what's a good result for the other party. Now, in our field, we do repetitive business. So the consequence of putting your foot on someone's exposed neck is that the reverse dynamic will be true in the future. So you want to be very careful to sustain the relationship. So can you craft win-win scenarios which fulfill your client's goals, but also fulfill that of the owner? I know that owners need to make profit and need to and have cap and other constraints on them. So you try to be sensitive to that while at the same time maximizing the value of your client.
Have you ever had clients that they believe in you and they believe in this way of doing business, but they're they're nervous about taking this approach, or maybe they think it's not going to yield as big a number as they'd like?
Fortunately, without being self-serving, I've done so many contracts which are record breakers and in a variety of different areas. I mean, part of having 64 first-round draft picks in football, the very first pick in the draft 8 times and 12 players in the Hall of Fame, is that someone would come to me because they have a belief that I'd be capable of doing the best things to sustain their career while at the same time maximizing their values. So they probably wouldn't be with me in the first place if had those doubts.
And obviously it works. You can't argue with that success. If you had to just isolate, and obviously it's you can't really do this. It's a collection of principles and ideas. But what would be the number one principle that you would say that you really focus on, that your entire career and everything you do kind of revolves around?
Um, Trying to consider the feelings of other people around me and trying
Okay.
to understand what their perspective and point of view is, and trying to educate myself so that I'm always in possession of facts and principles and concepts. And at the end of the day, have I made a meaningful difference in the world? Have I um, attacked sex trafficking and racism
Mm.
and the environment? Can we think of a program for bullying that has college or pro players going to high school players and telling them they should be the promoters of tolerance, not the bullies themselves? And if they're at the top of the food chain at a high school, they can change the culture of that school real quick. Or
Yeah.
being the environment and figuring out how to do a sporting green alliance that takes sustainable technology and wind, solar, recycling, resurfacing, and water to stadium, arena, and practice fields to drop carbon emissions and energy costs and transform them into educational platforms. So millions of fans can see how to use a waterless urinal or a solar panel and how to put that in their own homes. It's, or seeing a problem like players getting hit in the head
Mm.
and doctors not being able to tell how many is too many, and holding a series of concussion seminars where we emphasize player health, and just setting up a charitable foundation, Leigh Steinberg Foundation, .org, that does research into prevention, awareness, and cure. And it's not sitting passively back and viewing my role as only putting more dollars into a bank book of a player, but rather to protect their mental acuity and long-term health.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I was going to ask about that. It's amazing that your concussion foundation, what it's doing and how important that is. We didn't know about this just 10 years ago. We didn't know that much about this, and it wasn't in the public as much as it is now. So, tremendous kudos to you for doing that. Um, if at the end of the day, you have to think about what you want to be remembered for most. You've changed this industry in so many ways. You're teaching young agents how to do this as well, and transforming sports in general because of it. What do you want your legacy to be in this industry?
And I hope my legacy is left in the lives of other people, in the sense that my dad used to say, look, when you're looking for someone to make a difference in the world, solve a problem, as small as picking up a piece of trash, as big as racism, and you keep waiting for the they and them to solve the problem. Older people, political figures, they'll take care of it. He would say, you could wait forever. The they is you, son. You are the they. You have the responsibility. And I hope I've imbued people with a sense of responsibility that they can make a positive difference in the world, and it's all of our responsibility. So I suppose just the concept that I cared and maybe made a little bit of a difference in societal problems.
Well, you have made a huge difference, and all the athletes that you represent are making a huge difference as well. So it's exponential, and I know you're going to make a difference in anybody who listens to this and views this wonderful interview as well. So, Leigh, thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us today. And hopefully, maybe there's a couple of aspiring sports agents out there who hear this, or a couple of athletes who hear this and say, "That's what I want to do. That's how I want to do it," and they reach out to you as well. Thank you so much for taking the time. What's the website for the Concussion Foundation again?
Leigh Steinberg Foundation, Leigh, Leigh Foundation.org. And there's so many different ways that people can help. We found 2 healing modalities that can actually, through the theory of neuroplasticity, heal
wow.
concussed brain. One is called TMS, which is magnets against the head, and the other one's neurofeedback. And so there's hope to actually restore a concussed brain, and we want to spread the news.
Wow, that is extraordinary. Yeah, absolutely. So I would please go to that website and check it out. Anybody who's watching, and learn more about this and how you might be able to get involved and to support it in whatever way, because that is so extraordinarily important. And again, thanks for doing that, Leigh, and thanks for doing this.
My pleasure.
All right, take care, and hopefully we'll talk to you again soon.